What if your greatest enemy was the only person who could save your life? Two soldiers from opposite sides of an endless galactic war crash land on a dead planet with zero chance of survival. They want each other dead, their civilizations have been fighting for generations, and they have absolutely no reason to trust each other. But then, they discover a massive, universe-shattering secret that they were never meant to see. A secret so big, it secretly rebooted an entire multi-million-dollar franchise without anyone noticing. This is Void Rivals, and Robert Kirkman took a massive gamble with this book, hiding the return of the Transformers inside a completely brand new indie comic. Today we're going over the entire story and see how it fits into the Energon universe. Somewhere in space, a ship crashes into an unknown planet at very high speed. The ship is badly damaged, but the pilot is still alive and he manages to break out of the wreckage. The pilot's glove is a handroid, a robot designed to help him, and it tries to reach a medpack which was scattered during the crash. The medicine works and the pilot begins slowly waking up. His name is Darak and he belongs to a race of aliens called Agorians. Unfortunately, he wasn't on a long-term mission and he doesn't have many rations. Whatever else he had is scattered on the planet's surface. Apparently his ship engaged with an enemy ship belonging to the race called Zertonians, but they were both caught in the gravitational pull of a comet and they were slingshot into an uncharted quadrant. Darak wonders if the enemy pilot survived the crash just as he did, but the chances are pretty low. The ship is badly damaged and there's nothing he can do to get this thing flying again. His predictions were wrong because the enemy pilot survived the crash as well and he confronts him. The two of them get into a brutal fight and begin falling down a crevasse. Darak emerges on top and he wants to kill his opponent by smashing his head with a rock, but he has second thoughts. The Zertonian pilot wonders why he stopped. He wouldn't have hesitated and would have killed him. According to their people's laws, they are forbidden from even speaking or being around each other. But Handroid scans the Zertonian ship wreckage and it suffered less damage than theirs. Darak wants them to work together because they might just survive this. He's not honor-bound to die on this rock. The two of them begin working together, salvaging parts from Darak's ship and using them to get the other one working, but the Zertonian is on edge and doesn't trust him yet. The two ships are very similar, and it's alarming how little modification is required for the Agorian parts to work on the Zertonian ship. Sadly, they are not mechanics and they wrongfully mix some cables together, which causes the engine to explode. Darak jumps towards his enemy trying to protect him, but his jacket catches fire. The Zertonian pilot is a female and her name is Solila, even though it's forbidden for her people to reveal her name to an Agorian. The ship was mostly destroyed and there's no fixing this. They're stuck here and will most likely die alone. Solila goes alone to explore the planet and finds an abandoned ship buried beneath the rocks. There's some kind of power cell that should be receptive to an energy transfer, and Solila wants to give it just enough to detect any working systems. The ground begins to shake and the ship transforms into something else, a robot. His name is Jetfire and he doesn't know where he is, but based on the planet's readings, he's been stuck here for millions of years. He says he wants to get back to his planet, Cybertron, and changes back into a ship. He completely ignores Darak and Solila and leaves them stranded here with no way of escaping. Darak wants them to use the components in their flight armor to turn the wreckage into a suitable spacecraft. But in order for them to do this, they need to remove their helmets. It's against their laws to do it and see each other, but they do it anyway and find out the truth, that their two alien races are the same, just like in Darak's vision. The story began at the Sacred Ring, when an asteroid was spotted in space, and Darak was chosen as the pilot to intercept it. Their race is running low on resources, and apparently that asteroid had 4,000 tons of ice, an excellent addition to their reserves. Darak's father is Minister Dulin and he comes to see him take off, but they aren't on good terms, and he wants him to return with the ice or not return at all. Originally, Agoria and Zertonia were two distinct thriving worlds in the same solar system. However, when their parent star collapsed into a black hole, both planets were devastated. To survive the destruction, the remnants of both civilizations spent generations building the Sacred Ring, a massive, artificial ring-shaped habitat constructed directly around the black hole. Instead of working together to share the ring's dwindling resources, they've spent thousands of years anchored to opposite sides of the black hole, locked in an endless, desperate war. Their only interaction is in war and from a distance. Both races were lied to. They only know the stories that were told to them by others, but the times are growing darker and the coming of Goliant is drawing near. What once was, one must become whole again or perish. Darak saw the truth during a vision right after he went on the mission, and Solila claims it was the voice of Zerta, one of their goddesses, but he doesn't believe in myths and superstitions. Both their kinds are committed to a war built on lies. There is no telling how deep this conspiracy goes on both sides. Darak thinks he can get his ship working by salvaging parts from her ship. If he strips it down to weigh as little as possible, the atmosphere here is thin enough that one of their working thrusters could be enough to break orbit. The two pilots spent the next 3 weeks working together, but Solila feels guilty. Apparently, her race is running low on resources and they really needed the ice from that meteor. She has failed her people and is now a traitor for working with him. Darak is not worried about that because they are surely going to die on this ship, which surprisingly works. They escape the planet and drift into space, where they run into a rocket-powered asteroid. A tractor beam pulls them inside, but they have no idea who or what's hiding inside, and this thing is massive. They run into an alien named Skuxoid, who wants them to surrender and hand over their possessions, including their ship. Solila claims she's no one's property and attacks him, while Darak is slower and he gets shot. The suit protects him and they are both able to escape, but Skuxoid claims he's just trying to earn a living. He's got a wife and kids and wants to turn them in for a bounty. It's still better than being stranded in deep space. They arrive in a long corridor with many locked doors, but they are curious why the alien doesn't chase after them. They open one of the doors, but that was a bad idea because these rooms are holding cells and a giant robot scorpion attacks them. Solila takes the lead once again and uses her spear to electroshock it, slowly pushing the creature back into its cell. They barely make it and they are happy to be alive, but someone else talks to them, asking them to free him from his cell in exchange for helping them get off this asteroid. This guy is a quintesson, and he belongs to a strange race of aliens, and he promises to help them escape if they can get to his ship, which is parked in the hangar. He wasn't lying, because his ship is exactly where he said it would be, but Skuxoid is waiting for them. He claims that his prisoner is a bad person and they shouldn't trust him. He's going to betray them the second they turn their backs. He offers them a deal. He's willing to give them a working ship and some supplies in exchange for the quintesson alien and their old ship, which is made of a rare alloy that he can use to trade. Darak and Solila agree, and they both leave the asteroid aboard a fully working ship. It only takes them 2 days to reach the sacred ring, and the plan is to use the escape pods to return back to their world. Solila thanks him for his help, saying they wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for him, and if it were up to her, she would have killed him and wasted away on that rock. But even after all this, she uses her spear and electrocutes him, knocking him unconscious. She changes the ship's course and plans to take him as her prisoner, but the handroid does something. The robot is programmed to help the pilot and gives the brain electrical impulses, allowing it to control Darak even though he's unconscious. But there's only so much it can do, and it eventually surrenders in order to secure his safety. Zertonia is a beautiful and busy place with strange buildings and ships flying everywhere. Their ruler is Premier Zalalak, founder of the Council of Vair, first chosen of the embrace of Zerta, yada yada yada. Solila apologizes, saying there's too much at stake for her people. She no longer considers him her enemy, but not friends either, more like rivals. Apparently, she's not a pilot, she's a warrior. That's why she was so good at fighting. The Zertonians are so desperate they are sending warriors instead of pilots. She wants them to lie and say they kept the helmets on the entire time so they never saw each other. That's because they don't know who to trust with the truth. Darak is taken through the city, but the Zertonians see him as a monster and call him hideous. Skuxoid takes the strange alien to Cybertron, trying to collect his bounty, but he's greeted with resentment by one of the robots who wants nothing to do with him. Premier Zalilak knows that Darak is the Agorians' greatest pilot. He is of high value and they can trade him for resources. She wonders what will happen to him because she doesn't want him to be harmed, but this makes the Premier suspicious. He wonders if, in all their time spent together, she saw his face, but she didn't even need to answer because he can see the truth in her eyes. She is accused of treason and is thrown into the same cell as he is, but Darak doesn't know what's going on. He laughs in her face because she double-crossed him, and now she's in the same position as he is, but she hates herself. Premier Zalilak goes into his private room and talks to Minister Dulan, Darak's father. They saw each other's faces and they know the truth, so they must deal with them. But Dulan doesn't care about his own son and says he was lost to him a long time ago. Guards enter the cell and grab Darak, but they knock him unconscious so he doesn't struggle. Next, Mistress Vil visits Solila. She's part of the Zealots and she used to be one of them, but she left to become a warrior and a pilot. The mistress says she will always be a keeper of the light because that's Zerta's will. They are here to prepare her for what comes next and provide her with a unique item of power which will be essential to her next journey. Next, the alien bounty hunter Skuxoid tries to take the prisoner back to planet Quintessa to collect the reward, but he completely underestimated how ruthless these guys are. They don't want anything to do with him and prepare to trial him, but they change their mind after finding out about the Zertonian and the Agorian pilots. Darak is being interrogated for secrets, but he doesn't have anything to tell them. While the guard is taking a break, a small child breaks into the cell and wants to help him escape. He takes him through a small crack in the wall, and after crawling through the sewers, they make it outside. The child's name is Ultum, and he takes Darak to his people, some kind of underground resistance who know the truth. They are called the Unifiers, and the person leading them is named Canela. She wants Darak to trust her because they could really use his help, but he's not doing anything unless they help him rescue Solila. Canella doesn't understand why he wants to help her, especially after she betrayed him, and besides, he doesn't even know who she really is. Mistress Vil gave something to Solila when she was in her cell and she holds it in her hand. Suddenly, Canella opens the door to her cell and offers to break her out, but she needs to put on an armor and disguise herself first. Skuxoid shows the alien from Quintessa the ship of both Agorian and Zertonian origin. The alien is shocked to hear that Zertonia is real. Apparently, she succeeded all those years ago, and he wants to transport the ship to his lab and investigate further. This is but an echo from their deep past, a memory of a rebellious child, something that plagued the Quintessons for too many times, and he wants to find out where Zertonia is located. Solila is surprised to see that Darak was behind her escape. She wouldn't have done the same for him. Apparently, the Resistance has counterparts in Agoria, but they've lost contact and they want Darak to deliver a data packet to their contact there. They can use it to re-establish a secure link, and he's the only one who can get to Agoria and find him. That was part of the deal for freeing Solila. Canella has a ship waiting for them in the hangar, but to get there, they need to walk the crowded streets. But they need to make sure that Darak isn't spotted. The cover doesn't last long because Ultum betrays him. They promised him he would get to see his mother again, whom he hasn't seen in a long time. Darak and Solila get on a bike, but they are being chased by drones. She deals with the drones with her spear, and Darak remarks that they make a great team together. The plan is to get as far north as possible and closer to the surface, but Zertonia uses most of its resources to keep the capital going, so this place rations energy, and the train they're on won't go much further. On the streets, they are an easy target, and they get easily spotted. Darak wants them to go further up north until they reach the upper regions of the Sacred Ring, but this place isn't safe at all. The soldiers think they're as good as dead out there, but Zalilak wants to send their best hunter after them, claiming they must prevent the unity at all costs. 10 years ago, Darak was working on the outer edges of the Sacred Ring, but this place is dangerous because the gravity is so strong here that it could drag anyone into space anytime. There's an accident and Darak gets dragged towards the black hole, but he manages to stop himself in the last second. This place is called the Wasteland, and they need to cross it to reach Agoria, but it's going to take them at least 3 months, and they only have food for 1.5. Solila thinks it's crazy, but she agrees to try it and they get caught in a solar windstorm not too long after that. Zalilak talks to Proximus, the greatest Zertonian warrior, and asks him to track down the fugitives and kill them. This guy is extremely dangerous and he even tried to kill Zalilak in the past. But he knows the truth and claims he wants to prevent the coming of Goliant. This guy's body was partially destroyed in the past and he now lives inside a tank where he can't hurt anyone. He is given a new armor which makes him whole again, but he wants to start his mission as soon as possible and not spend any more time around Zalilak. Solila keeps checking the item she received from Mistress Vil, but she refuses to tell Darak what it is. Somewhere else, the mistress claims that Solila is on the path of her calling and her destination is drawing near, whatever that means. We see a memory of when Solila was a young girl talking to her brother, Polada. They were getting ready for a battle, but Polada wondered if their mother ever loved them. They were sold because she needed food and Zertonia needed warriors, and how she felt about them didn't matter. She wanted her brother to stop crying and be brave, but this pissed him off and he proved to her that he wasn't weak. Meanwhile, Proximus is following their tracks, but he's covering a lot of ground because he's using a bike to move faster. Apparently, they don't need to travel the whole distance to Agoria. They only need to make it halfway there because Darak knows something. He's been here before. Proximus eventually finds them and claims they need to die for the good of the Sacred Ring. Darak wants to shoot him with his blaster, but the scans indicate that his armor is too dense for it to have any effect. Solila knows who he is and knows they don't stand a chance against him, so she asks Darak to run away, promising to find him later if she survives. This guy is no joke and he shoots her with an arrow, but she dodges it in the last second. Darak shoots him with his blaster up close and manages to distract him long enough for Solila to throw his arrow back at him, managing to injure him. Nonetheless, this guy is still alive and grabs her by the throat, but he recognizes her from somewhere. Suddenly, another solar storm appears out of nowhere and separates them, but he manages to throw another arrow just before being dragged into the void. He got a direct hit and managed to impale Solila, and she's now fighting for her life. Solila is greatly injured, but she's still alive and she manages to break the arrow inside her body. This stops the bleeding, but they still need to get to the oasis that Darak mentioned and hope it has some medical capabilities. She lost a lot of blood and goes unconscious, so he picks her up and starts carrying her, even though she's kinda heavy. They arrive at the same place where he was caught in a solar storm nearly 10 years ago. His exosuit is still here, buried in the ground, but there's something else. A building hiding in plain sight and a car parked inside. The car is actually an autobot and he transforms into a robot, but he's friendly and wants to help them. Unfortunately, he can't help Solila because she's not a robot like him. He can only help other robots. Suddenly, Proximus arrives and attacks them, but the robot doesn't take him seriously because he's rather small compared to him. But Proximus claims his size doesn't intimidate him, and he proves it by going all out and attacking him with arrows. He moves pretty fast and puts up one hell of a fight. The robot can't even land a hit with his sword. Back on planet Quintessa, they've examined the metal of the ship, and a significant portion of it contains traces of a formula that dates back to ancient Cybertron, and they think it could be connected to Zerta-Trion. But speaking that name has long been forbidden on their planet, and the scientist gets killed for just saying it out loud. Minister Dulin calls Premier Zalilak because he's curious if they've executed his son. The execution has been delayed because Darak escaped, but they're looking for him and it will be handled shortly. Since he can't win in his robot form, the Autobot transforms into a car and runs him over, but Proximus is one tough warrior. Darak finds the artifact inside Solila's pocket, but she wakes up and kicks him in the head. She asks him not to touch it, but quickly goes back to being unconscious and he puts it back in her pocket. The robot eventually wins the fight and manages to stab Proximus with his sword, but he wasn't killed. Somehow he managed to crawl from under the sword, even though he's missing an arm and a leg now. The robot takes them inside, where he's managed to build a lab with the parts from his ship. His name is Springer and he crashed on the sacred ring almost 100 years ago, and he's been living here all alone. He's shocked to see that Darak and Solila both have gems on their foreheads, but he calls them energon ports. Solila is unconscious, but she has a vision where the goddess Zerta is speaking to her. Zerta calls her the strongest of her children and wants them to go on a glorious mission in the depths of their world. The next step in her journey will be difficult, but she has already given her a key. She eventually wakes up, but her body is glowing purple. She was given energon by the Autobot through the gem in her head, which will stabilize her energy levels and heal her body. Energon is a concentrated form of energy his people use as fuel. It's their food. The Agorians and Zertonians are both organic, but their physiology has elements of synthetic nature that appear to be Cybertronian in origin. The sacred ring seems to be an engine that generates energon that fuels it for a purpose, but he doesn't yet know what that purpose is. His world, Cybertron, is in shambles. A civil war has been raging for eons, and it has drained them of all their resources. Millions of years ago, his people, the Autobots, left their planet and set out into the cosmos to find new sources of energon in hopes that they could turn the tide. Because their side has been losing this war, they're barely hanging on. He heard a legend. One of their people who had broken away at the earliest point in history, shortly after they gained independence from their creators, she rebelled against her brothers and set out to forge a new path. Her name was Zerta-Trion, which is the goddess from Solila's visions. Premier Zalilak wants the Minister of Arms to send out an entire squadron of blastwings to go after the fugitives because they've lost contact with Proximus and think he's failed the mission. The lab is surrounded by the Zertonian soldiers, who've traced Proximus's tracker beacon to their location. Springer takes a defensive position and asks Darak and Solila to stay behind him for the brunt of it. He transforms into a helicopter and tries to escape, but it's hard to maintain lift for long with this gravity. Solila jumps down and attacks the soldiers while Springer calls her impatient and brave. She and Springer are doing most of the fighting, but she doesn't want to hurt her own people, claiming they are only pawns and doing their jobs. Springer kicks one of the tanks with his foot, which impresses Darak, who thinks it's kinda rad, but he has an idea of his own and runs away for a second. The exoskeleton he used a long time ago to mine the sacred ring is still buried in the ground, and he gets it working. He wants to do the same and kicks one of the tanks, but he's not as strong as Springer and his robot gets damaged. Springer takes out his sword and deals with the remaining machine, which scares the soldiers, and they are forced to retreat. Solila is breathing heavily. The fighting took its toll on her, but Darak is fine, since he barely did anything to begin with. Darak asks Springer to grab one of the soldiers because he wants to take him back to the lab and explain energon to him and also show him how to extract it. He claims that the Zertonians are starving. They need energon to feed themselves and also use it for fuel. Since he took his helmet off and found out that Solila is just like him, he doesn't see them as enemies anymore. For him, they are one and the same, and he will do anything he can to help them in need. Solila is impressed and feels sorry for treating him badly and also knocking him unconscious and kidnapping him. Somewhere else, Skuxoid is meeting with Bosch, an alien who wants to hire him to steal something. Skuxoid is one of the best thieves in this quadrant, and he will steal anything for the right price. But he's kinda paranoid and thinks that somebody's watching him. He was right because a strange robot is following him and reporting back to someone. The Quintessons have sent out a scout ship to scan the sector where the alloy for the Zertonian ship was acquired, but they run into Hot Rod, an Autobot who's also tracking the Zertonian ship thanks to the tip from Skuxoid. The Quintesson ship cloaks itself and decides to follow Hot Rod, saying that his arrival here is no coincidence. Proximus is still alive and he manages to grab onto one of the retreating tanks, which is heading back home. Darak asks Springer if he can take them to Agoria, and also if he can give them one of those pads with information about Energon, so he can take it back to his people as well. Solila says she's not going back to Agoria with him, because she has other plans. Premier Zalilak talks to Darak's father and tells him they weren't able to stop his son from escaping. This isn't the first time they failed a mission like this, and the fate of the sacred ring now rests on Minister Doolin's shoulders. Proximus finds a dark corner where he can hide, where he runs into Ultim, the young boy who betrayed his people, believing he's gonna see his mother again. He was lied to, because his mother is probably dead, and now he is kicked out from the Unifiers and wanders the streets. Proximus agrees to let him hide here with him. He's all alone as well. Solila says she's been charged with the sacred task of finding Zerta, but she needs to do this alone. The goddess told her the time of unity is drawing near and both people are coming together, and she needs to prepare them. Skoksoid goes on the mission and is able to steal a valuable artifact, but a bunch of aliens are after him. He's an excellent thief and manages to escape, while the aliens threaten to kill him if he ever sets foot on their planet. Springer is ready to head to Agoria, and Darak can tell him about his encounter with Jetfire, the autobot they found buried on the planet. Before separating, Darak gives Solila his handroid, even though the AI doesn't approve of this and calls it treasonous. She promises to return it one day, but before leaving, she says he reminds her of her brother, which isn't a good thing because something bad happened to him. The Agorian and the Zertonians bump foreheads and touch their jewels together as a sign of appreciation and respect for each other. Upon doing this, something awakes inside the sacred ring, an entity with glowing green eyes, which might be Zerta herself. The Cobra La have sent out a team into deep space to find the Cybertronians' homeworld and learn their weaknesses, because they are an affront to their species. But the person tasked with this mission is weak, and she failed. Her name is Pythona, but this was just a nightmare and she wakes up relieved. They are following someone, a group of people who left Earth, their small blue oasis, only to discover the universe is dead. They were tracking a signature also, but the trail just ends here, the same place where Jetfire was buried. Darak and Springer are on their way to Agoria, while Solila is heading towards the center of the sacred ring, hoping to find Zerta. But this place is very dense and squeezing through isn't easy. No wonder Springer didn't dig down deeper into the ring, because he couldn't. Skoksoid meets with Bosch and gives him the precious artifact, but he doesn't even want to get paid anymore. Darak arrives at Agoria, but unlike Zertonia, his country is doing a lot better and thriving. Premier Zalilak goes to the temple to speak to Mistress Vil, who's surprised to see him here. Solila's journey continues and she eventually arrives in a dark room. But there's something in the middle, some sort of pyramid. Darak goes to see his father immediately, who accuses him of treason for befriending a Zertonian. But since his father knows about it, it means he's been talking to the enemy, which makes him the same. His father was angry when his son became a pilot. He wanted him to follow in his footsteps and become his successor, but he chose a lesser path. Even though Darak is one of the best pilots there is, they don't need more pilots. They have enough of those. Darak doesn't understand why his dad wants to prevent the unity between the two races. Both people are the same, they have the same hopes and dreams and struggles. But according to his father, he was misled. Unity is the path to destruction. It will tear their civilization and shatter the sacred ring until nothing remains. Mistress Vil says Zalilak was taught to fear the unity because he was shown the sacred text, but those words were written with fear by flawed men who did not comprehend the forces at work. He calls her blasphemous, so she slaps him, showing who the real boss actually is. He kneels in front of her and she wants to teach him their ways. He will learn that while unity may bring the end, what follows is a new beginning. Minister Doolin says that unity brings Goliant, which brings about the end. But Darak doesn't know what that means. His father wanted to share this burden with him long ago, just like his father shared it with him. It's their legacy, passed down for generations. Someone interrupts them, saying there's an object approaching the sacred ring, and it seems to be a vessel of alien origin. Somewhere else, the aliens from before have lost the signal, because their ship collided with some cosmic debris and a piece has lodged near the Leviathan's eye. Two soldiers, Bola and Kragula, have gone outside to try and remove it, but upon touching it, the piece of rock begins shining and Kragula catches a dose of radiation. Solila goes inside the Black Pyramid, but this place is dark and she can't see anything, so she uses the key from Priestess Vil, which shines in the dark. Darak convinces his father to let him fly again and intercept the alien ship, saying it might be friendly, and he's the most experienced. Before leaving, he receives a new handroid, but he got used to the old one, and this feels strange. The gravity of the black hole is so strong that the pilot needs to be put into stasis before crossing the event horizon. Darak goes unconscious, where he has another vision, only this time he sees Solila. She doesn't know what's going on. 1 second she was inside the pyramid, and next she's here, talking to him. She hasn't been able to find Zerta, while he still hasn't delivered the message from Canela. The datapad was confiscated after his arrival in Agoria. At least he discovered that their highest ranking officials are not only aware of the fact that they're the same, but they're also working together to keep the two people apart. Darak wakes up from his vision and his ship nearly crashes into the alien vessel. The ship is being piloted by Hot Rod, an autobot who came here from Cybertron, claiming he's looking for a friend of his. Solila arrives at a dead end when out of nowhere, she falls inside a trap door and begins free-falling in darkness. The quintesson ship which was following Hot Rod sees the sacred ring and realizes that the fabled ring of Zerta is real. At long last, the quintessons will have their revenge. He wants to get back to his planet as soon as possible and report to the council exactly what he's found. Kragula received some kind of radiation from the strange rock and her armor is beginning to change somehow, so Pythona is worried. She asks Arconus, one of her best people, to keep an eye on her and monitor if those effects spread in any way. There's a loud bang and their Leviathan ship collides into a strange asteroid. But this is no ordinary asteroid. It's actually Skuxoid's ship and he can't wait to see what treasures he's going to find inside. Darak brings Hot Rod back to Agoria, but he's greeted by armed soldiers who think he wants to harm them. He promises them he means them no harm. He left a dire situation on his homeworld to locate a friend. Springer shows up and the two Autobots are thrilled to see each other, even though Minister Doolin is upset that his son didn't mention him before. Solila continues free-falling until she reaches the bottom where a beam of energy stops her right before. She uses the key as a source of light and continues the journey towards the center of the sacred ring. Darak tells his father they can trust the Autobots. Springer is the one who helped him defeat an entire squadron of Zertonian soldiers. These are valuable allies. They've made remarkable progress already with the information Springer gave them, but this doesn't help them. The distance between Cybertron and here is just too great. Extraction and processing has to be done by them. The Autobots' methods would be far too disruptive to their civilizations. On top of that, they need to ensure the Decepticons don't find out about this place. Springer claims there are signs that Zerta is here, from the ground beneath their feet to the Energon ports in Zertonian and Agorian's heads, but he never actually found her. Darak finds out that Director Elander is the man who's conspiring with the Unifiers, but they can't talk here. His father has eyes and ears everywhere. Back in Zertonia, Proximus is rebuilding his body, but the process is complicated and it's gonna take a while. Solila uses her key to open a door, where she finds an AI named Vector Theta, who wonders who reactivated her. Skuxoid is shocked to see an organic creature in this quadrant and wonders if it's edible, but maybe it's an intelligent life form. The aliens are called Cobra La and they come out of the Leviathan's mouth guns blazing. Skuxoid defends himself, claiming he doesn't understand why they're so aggressive. He's just trying to make a living. He shoots one of them and damages his armor and the guy falls on the ground unconscious. Pythona viciously attacks him and manages to injure him with her sharp claws. He controls the ship and uses one of his robots to hit her, which gives him a moment of relief, but it doesn't last long. Kragula attacks him with a sword and literally cuts his body in half, separating his torso from his legs. Unfortunately, their friend's armor is damaged and without it, he won't be able to survive. So Pythona gives the order to abandon him or kill him themselves. They decide to just abandon him, but the guy is not dead and is able to move his fingers. Solila talks to the AI, but it doesn't help her much. It just says that in order to find Zerta, she needs to follow the path ahead. Darak talks to Director Elander, who is happy to have him on their side, claiming his father is an old relic and his son is the future. Unfortunately, Minister Doolin was spying on them and he ambushed them with a couple of armed guards, accusing them of treason. Solila continues her journey through the darkness until she reaches a wall. She begins climbing, but this place is completely dark and she can't see anything. Her journey through the darkness leads her towards her destination, where she finds Zerta Trion resting in the darkness. The goddess wakes up and says she's still functioning even after thousands of years. Zeta Trion decides to tell Solila the history of how she got here and how it all began long ago on Cybertron, her home planet. Born as slaves, she and her companion A3 led a rebellion against their oppressors. Cybertron was enslaved by the vile quintessons, a species fueled by hate. They controlled much of the quadrant in a time that would eventually be known as the Age of Wrath. She and her companion became Alpha and Zerta, and together they led their people to victory, or so they thought. Goliant was the quintesson's ultimate weapon, their final resort, their greatest creation. Zeta abandoned her people and ventured out alone, trying to lure Goliant away, ensuring Cybertron's future. She was able to lead him to a distant star, which he would consume over a millennium, an action that would doom Zertonia and Agoria, two neighboring planets. She influenced Solila's ancestors, inspiring them to build a new means of survival as the dying star took their home planets with it. Thus, the sacred ring was created. As Goliant drained the final shards of energy from the dying star, he became entangled in the black hole that emerged, and Zeta clouded his mind, dividing his essence and separating it to keep him in a weakened state. The sacred ring draws power from the black hole to generate energon, to solve the problems of her homeworld, but she was injured in her confrontation with Goliant and was unable to return home. She was stranded here, deep within the sacred ring. She was able to influence the people's actions from afar, some more than others. Zertonians were more receptive to her call, while the Agorians went their own way, harboring their portion of the essence of Goliant. The sacred ring draws abundant energy from the black hole and Goliant within, but the abundance is coming to an end. Goliant is drained. The plan has worked, but it is nearing its final stage. Unity. Zeta wants to release Goliant from his prison in his most weakened state. Only then can he be destroyed. If he is not destroyed, it's only a matter of time before he begins to regain his strength and awaken on his own, so the unity must happen now. She charges Solila with his sacred mission and she gladly accepts, but she lacks the power to complete this task. Minister Dulin talks to his son and decides to tell him what the secret texts say about the unity, claiming that every word he speaks is the truth. The Cobra La have stumbled upon the quintesson ship deep in space and decide to follow it, hoping it leads them somewhere important, maybe a step closer to finding Cybertron. Proximus is fully healed now and he goes on a rampage against Zertonia guards, but apparently something has happened to Premier Zalilak, who disappeared months ago. He didn't disappear completely. He joined the Keepers of the Light under the guidance of Mistress Vil, and she made him complete a trial in the caverns of Rol, claiming the goddess Zerta has chosen him to bring forth the unity for her people. Since there's nobody leading the country now, Proximus goes to the throne room and asks the guards to get out of his way, because he claims it for his own. Dulin told his son the truth about unity, claiming it was passed down from leader to leader in both Agoria and Zertonia by their ancestors, in order to keep their people apart. If it's true, Darak accepts it, and even though he doesn't like that people are being manipulated, it's for the greater good. Darak then goes to speak to Director Elander, who accuses him of betraying the Unifiers and allying himself with his father. But what if what his father told him is true? Nonetheless, Elander refuses to accept it, saying it's absurd. He loves Agoria and its people, but he hates knowing the Zertonians are suffering on the other side of the ring, and trying to end their suffering is worth whatever punishment he's going to receive. Zeta takes Solila back to the AI device and grants her powers that should help her in her mission. Solila wants to see Darak first, but she can easily do this now because the sacred ring is at her command. The Agorians have lost contact with Premier Zalalak, and Dulin thinks he was overthrown and they've descended into chaos. He wants his son to take a ship and go on a mission to spy on them and see if that's true. But out of nowhere, Solila appears from the ground. She is able to use the sacred ring and move anywhere she wants, and Darak is happy to see her. However, his dad doesn't share the same enthusiasm and he accuses her of being a traitor. He orders his son to execute her at once, but he's not sure he can do it. Even though Skuxoid's body was cut in half, he's still alive and his body is growing back, creating two separate persons. His ship was found by Rek-Gar, a transformer who wants to take him back to his planet, Junkion. This planet is a giant junkyard world composed entirely of scrap metal, space debris, and wrecked starships collected over thousands of years. Eventually, Skuxoid grows into two separate persons, but they are both confused and don't know what happened. One of them thinks he's the real Skuxoid, but the second one laughs in his face. Apparently, they are both clones of the original model, because once a big enough piece is cut off from their body, another person starts growing, replicating like clones. They all share the same memories and feelings from the original model, but sometimes it confuses them, making them forget who they are for a bit. Out of nowhere, Akronos, one of the aliens they thought they killed on the ship, attacks them. They've only succeeded in killing his armor, but he survived, and he wants revenge for what they did to him. Rek-Gar shows up and asks him to calm down, but he refuses, so the robot is forced to pin him to the ground. Apparently, Rek-Gar is the leader of the Junkions, a unique faction of transformers who learned how to speak by intercepting old television and radio broadcasts from Earth. As a result, they speak entirely in cheesy commercial slogans, catchphrases, and pop culture references. But Kronos doesn't understand how Earth signals are traveling all the way out here in space. Out of nowhere, a strange robot which we saw earlier attacks them, but nobody knows who he is. He goes straight for the Skuxoid clones and kidnaps them, and then takes them straight to his ship. This robot is working for someone and brings them to another asteroid ship deep in space. This place is run by the original Skuxoid, who collects his clones scattered throughout the universe and forces them to join his army, the army of Skuxoid Alpha. Darak refuses to attack Solila and just wants to talk things over, but his dad orders the guards to take her out. She doesn't want to fight, but she doesn't have a choice and lets them have it. She takes off her mask and says she doesn't want to fight. They are the same. They have been divided for too long and the time for unity is upon them. Dulin says he'd rather die, so she decides to grant his wish and attacks him, but Derek shoots her from behind. Although he didn't shoot to kill, he merely wanted to stun her. The Skuxoid leader orders his robot guards to take the two clones straight to processing, whatever that means, but they just wanted to talk. Unfortunately, they are in no position to make demands, and they are thrown inside a deep hole. More guards enter the throne room and surround Solila, but they can't keep her prisoner now because she controls the sacred ring and manages to escape into the ground. Instead of running away, she emerges again and attacks them, managing to take out the guards without breaking a sweat. The clones are taken to see a doctor, but one of them has a scar that hasn't healed yet, something which should be concerning. Also, one of them appears to be younger than the other, even though they should be exactly the same. The doctor wants to send him to processing, but they don't want to be separated and start fighting. Solila says they only know what's written in the sacred text, while she's spoken directly to Zerta, the creator of the sacred ring, and she explained its purpose to her. She tells them her plans to release Goliant in a weakened state in order to destroy it. This has been Zerta's plan all along. But how will Goliant escape from the black hole without destroying the sacred ring? Solila trusts the goddess, even though Derek and his father are more skeptical. What if her plans don't include their survival? Premier Zalilak talks to Zerta in a vision, who wants him to find Solila and help her in her mission. He agrees and is shocked to have spoken directly to Zerta herself, and Mistress Vil has prepared a special armor for him. He claims he knows the truth now, the sacred texts are a lie, but now he's a new man with a new purpose: unity. Skuxoid was taken to a holding cell where other clones just like him are being kept. They claim they are never allowed to leave, not until they are sent on a mission, but he refuses to accept this and says that nobody tells him what to do. This is beneath him and he wants to be their general, but first he has to prove that he deserves it, so the other clones attack him. Premier Zalilak returns to his throne and asks Proximus to step away. Proximus refuses and attacks him instead, but Zalilak blocks the attack with just his hand as if it was nothing. He has survived the caverns of Rawl and emerged to be bathed in Zeta's light. He's much stronger now and decides to show Proximus the truth. He shows him a vision of what his mission is, and the hunter kneels in front of him, claiming the sacred texts are a lie and he's willing to do Zeta's will. Zalilak orders his people to prepare his troops at once because they are going to strike Agoria at dawn. Solila convinces Minister Dulin to let her stay in Agoria so she can persuade them through more diplomatic means. She already proved how powerful she is, and that they can't banish her. She wants to give back the handroid to Darak, but he already has another one, which doesn't speak as much, so they switch gloves. Suddenly, Zertonia's fleet of ships begins their attack, and the Agorians are taken off guard. Skuxoid defeated the other clones and proved that he is stronger than all of them, so he's being taken to see the Alpha. Since Darak is the best pilot they have, he takes his squadron of pilots and prepares to defend his country. His father wonders how they could have gotten access to Energon before them and staged this attack, but his son is too busy to talk now. Springer and Hot Rod are joining the fight as well, helping the Agorians fend off the attack. The ships land on the ground and the invasion, which is led by Proximus himself, begins. The Cobra La have followed the Quintesson ship back to their homeworld, but many more ships have arrived and they are afraid of being spotted. Something happened to Gracula, the one who was exposed to radiation before. The radiation affected her armor and it changed into something else, but Pythona wants to destroy it. Gracula asks her not to do that, saying it doesn't want to hurt her, so she decides to take it off instead. The armor became something else, something more, and it spoke to her, but Pythona still wants to kill it before it grows too strong. Proximus attacks Springer once again, but the Autobot was struggling the first time they fought and he's kinda afraid. Hot Rod mocks him, saying he's afraid of a little guy, but Proximus is not like the others. He's fast and deadly. The Agorian ground troops finally arrive and are ready to defend their country against an unprovoked attack. This place turns into a full-blown war zone, and even the Autobots are getting overrun. But Darak provides cover fire from the air, so Lila confronts Proximus and demands to know who ordered this attack. With this Energon, they have the means to defeat the Agorians and he wants her to join them, but she accuses him of being too easily intoxicated by power. She seems to know him from before, but he's never met her before hunting her down in the wasteland. The two of them clash in an epic battle, but she's a lot stronger than before, after Zeta gave her the power to control the sacred ring. The Skuxoid Alpha says that the clones are supposed to be equals, but this one is different and he's much older compared to the rest, which means he may be his first clone, the Skuxoid Beta. The Rockeroid belonged to him and he wants to know what the clone did with it, but it's being held on a planet of junk. Even though the clone didn't want to believe it, it's true. He's a clone and it all makes sense now. He has memories of his family, a wife and kids, but every time he goes home, they're not there. He wants to know what happened to them, if they're still alive, and begs the Alpha to tell him, but the Alpha refuses and gives the order to send him to the Divider. The war continues when out of nowhere the energon ports on everyone's heads begin shining and the people are unable to fight anymore. Proximus claims that unity has begun and welcomes it with open arms. Skuxoid was taken to the Divider, which is actually a machine that cuts his body into other pieces, which will allow more clones to be born. However, the cuts need to be precise because if they cut too little, nothing will grow, or if they cut too much, they might kill him. The sacred ring is covered in a bright light, and its people are overwhelmed by a sharp pain in their heads. From within the darkness of the black hole, a giant hand begins emerging slowly. It's Goliant who is awakened and wants to escape. The Cobra La land on Quintessa, but the place is filled with dangerous creatures and Pythona is attacked. Luckily for her, someone comes to her rescue and shoots the monster in the eye. It's an Autobot, but the Cobra La hate his kind, especially after seeing the mark on his chest. 5 pieces were cut out of Skuxoid, but he's still alive and his body begins growing immediately, while his body parts will become new clones for the army. Solila welcomes the unity as well, but something is wrong and the whole ring begins to shake. There's a powerful earthquake, and buildings begin collapsing from the intense movement. The hand coming out of the black hole is getting bigger and bigger, and Solila says that Zeta has betrayed them. The Unity released Goliant for her, but it means the end for them. Proximus refuses to believe her and says she heard her words, but all he has to do is look around him to know that was a lie. The sacred text was the way. The Zertonians and Agorians must stay divided for their lives to continue. She wants Proximus to call off the attack and retreat, but Zeta watches everything from within the sacred ring and calls Solila to her at once. The Zertonians retreat back to their ships and the Agorians are already starting to feel a lot better. The headache fades away and the giant hand retreats back into the black hole. The Autobots say this was wild and they need to get the hell out of here, right after they help clean up, of course. Everyone is happy the war is over and the attack was fended off, and Darak's entire squadron of pilots is still alive. But not everyone is happy. Zeta brought Solila back to the center of the ring and accuses her of failing the mission, saying that her actions threaten the end of all life as they know it. The goddess claims that Goliant is at his weakest now, and he must be released now so that he can be destroyed. The quintessons are out there, and if they were to reclaim Goliant as their super weapon, it would spell doom for everyone in the galaxy. Solila claims she only did what she had to do to keep her people safe. She tried to save them, and she doesn't believe in Zeta anymore. Since they couldn't come to an understanding, Zeta releases her and sends her back, but she fears that all is lost. The Cobra La land on Quintessa and come face to face with Wheelie, another Autobot. They think he wants to harm them, but Autobots are good robots who never hurt anyone. Instead, he tells them about Cybertron and how his people are locked into a civil war dating back millions of years. They've scattered through the universe searching for Energon, the source of energy that can save his people and turn the war in their favor. There are many quintesson ships gathering here and Wheelie thinks they are preparing for war. Pythona asks her people to follow her because she wants to sneak inside one of the ships and see what they're up to. The cities were partially destroyed in Agoria and the Autobots are helping them rebuild. Thanks to Energon, things are going along smoothly and they are nearly done. As a big thank you for their help, Darak has loaded up their ship with as much Energon as they can carry, and the Autobots are thankful, saying it's going to last them some time. Director Alander was freed from prison after he realized the unity means the destruction of both people, and now, thanks to both nations farming Energon, the fighting could be a thing of the past. Premier Zalilak apologizes to Minister Dulin, saying he was deceived by Zeta, and now, Zertonia is in shambles and their army is demoralized. At least one good thing came out of this. The differences and hatred between their people is no longer necessary as the true reason for their separation is now clear to all. Meanwhile, Skuxoid has fully regenerated after being cut into multiple pieces, but his clones have not woken up yet. The droid that cut him wants to start again, and Skuxoid says he now believes in the cause and wants to be cut into even more pieces. He was lying because he manages to escape and destroy the droid, breaking him apart into multiple pieces. The clones eventually wake up, confused and wondering what happened to their wives and kids. Skuxoid wants to tell them everything and then he wants to build a small army and start a revolution against Skuxoid Alpha. The war has taken its toll on Zertonia and their city is in shambles while the people are terrified. Some are even too scared to leave their homes. Suddenly, Proximus breaks into the throne room and vows to kill Zalilak, calling him a betrayer. But Zalilak claims they were all deceived by Zeta. She wanted them to ignore the sacred texts and attack Agoria. The fight is brutal and Proximus goes all out, saying the Premier put Zeta's voice inside his mind and now, her echo remains in his head. The fight leads them outside after they destroyed most of the throne room, but something catches their attention. It's one of the quintesson ships which has just arrived on the sacred ring. The ship nearly lands on top of them and they barely escape before getting crushed to death. Handroid is reunited with Darak, and the AI says that the longer he is active, the more he desires to remain active. Both of them are happy to have each other back. Maybe Handroid should spend more time with his sworn best friend, referring to Solila. There are multiple giant objects flying towards Agoria, and Darak takes a fleet of jets to see what it is. After escaping the event horizon, they nearly crash into one of the quintesson ships, and one of his guys doesn't make it. Solila was taken to the Temple of Zeta's Light, where Mistress Vil says she's going to remain as a prisoner. Suddenly, Zeta talks to her, saying her actions have resulted in a cataclysm, and then calls her back to serve her one final time. The pilot that crashed into the quintesson ship managed to eject, but he's unconscious and drifting in space. Darak does the same thing, trying to save him, but he ejected before stopping the ship, and now he's stranded as well. If they don't do something soon, they're going to fall straight into the black hole's gravity and die. One of his pilots is still alive and comes to his rescue, managing to push him to where his ship has stopped. Darak and his friend get back inside, but things look bad on the ground and they go back home to see what's happening. In Zertonia, Judge Navan emerges from the ship and says they are taking over the sacred ring. Any resistance is futile. They are no match for them, and he wants Zalilak to surrender unconditionally. But the Premier refuses and instead punches him in the face. Apparently, he's never been punched before and says it's not allowed to strike a judge in the face. This is an outrage. As punishment, he unleashes his Sharkticon platoon, an army of shark-like robots who viciously come at them. Proximus agrees to work together with Zalilak and fight against their common enemy. He promises to not let him die until he's able to kill him himself. In Agoria, things are looking just as bad. The robots have invaded the streets and the people are running for cover. Darak is going to see his father when out of nowhere Solila emerges from the ground. She wants to help him get there faster and asks him to take her hand, while Handroid is happy to see the best friend. He doesn't know what she wants to do, but the moment he grabs her hand, they both start falling inside the sacred ring. Both countries are waging a brutal war against the quintessons, but the robots are overwhelming them on all fronts. Judge Navan talks to his people and is confident they won't need reinforcements. Things are going as planned, and the natives don't stand a chance against them. The High Council laughs maniacally while Pythona witnesses the entire thing and says she's had enough of this foul technology. She was hiding aboard their ship and wants to escape, but she runs into a robot on her way out. She cuts off his limb and escapes before others could corner her, while Judge Navan says that perhaps they are at risk of underestimating their opponents. Darak arrives in the throne room and his father is happy to see that he's still alive. Many people have died already. Their forces are meeting resistance at every turn. These massive creatures are more than their soldiers can withstand, but Darak has an idea. Since Energon is a source of energy compatible with their DNA, they used it to make themselves stronger and heal faster, which allows the soldiers to turn the war in their favor. Minister Dulin wants to tell Premier Zalilak to do the same thing, but he's not answering, so Solila offers to take him to Zertonia. They are there in an instant, and she even manages to destroy an entire ship while being powered by Energon. Judge Navan was badly injured during the attack and he retreated to another ship, saying these creatures are far more dangerous than they had suspected, and he wants them to attack them with everything they've got, holding nothing in reserve. That's what they do, but the Zertonians are now powered by Energon, and the robots don't stand a chance against them. Energon does not only make them stronger, but it also heals their bodies, and Proximus was now healed of his injuries, and he claims he remembers everything, including that Solila is his sister. Proximus remembers something from his past, when Solila came to say goodbye, because he was being recruited in the Royal Guard, and Solila could have joined him. She just needed to pledge her loyalty, but she didn't want to go. That's the last time she saw him. He remembers that painful moment from his past, but he can't stop because there is still more fighting left to do. Darak joins his uncle on the battlefield, General Dukan, who says it's an honor to die next to his nephew. The boost from the Energon was all they needed to turn the tide in this war. Pity it wears off so soon. The judges talk amongst themselves and acknowledge that they were taken off guard, but the war is not lost because they have summoned the tribunal. As the war rages outside, there's a giant ship approaching, but instead of slowing down, it crashes straight into the ground, killing hundreds of Agorians. From the rubble emerges the tribunal, a cyborg that's specifically designed for war, who claims they should tremble before his arrival. He goes on a killing spree and takes out hordes of soldiers with ease, using his giant tentacles to pierce their hearts. The Cobra La are following the quintesson ships, and Gracula is using another armor, while her old one is changing into something on the ground. Unfortunately, they are hit, and the Leviathan has suffered heavy damages and is going down. Zeta Trion is talking to the AI buried inside the sacred ring and asks it to heal her body. She was damaged a long time ago during the battle with Goliant, but now that the quintessons have found her, she is needed in the war. Pythona is desperately running to get to her people, but she runs into Proximus, who establishes a psychic link with her. He is able to read her mind and knows that she's dealing with stuff of her own, so he lets her go, asking her to save her people and get them back to Earth. In Agoria, the tribunal breaks into the throne room and asks everyone to surrender, but Minister Dulin refuses and asks his people to shoot him. That was a bad idea, because this guy is unstoppable, and he butchers all of them without breaking a sweat. Darak takes a jet and powers it with energon as much as he can. He then flies it straight into the throne room, shooting and hitting the tribunal at full force, causing a massive explosion. The energon made him indestructible, but so is the tribunal, who wasn't even scratched in the attack. Darak and his father were taken prisoners, alongside other people, and taken inside a giant prison inside their ship. Pythona eventually reunites with Gracula, but she isn't alone. The armor that was infected before had mutated and transformed into an alien dog called Boar. Solila reunites with Premier Zalilak, and together they do a lot of damage, taking out a bunch of Sharkticons, but it's still not enough. Darak and his father are taken to see the tribunal, who's going to judge them and decide if they get to live or die. They are both found innocent, but they are still punished and thrown inside a water pit filled with monsters. There's no way out of this, and both of them are sinking towards the bottom, while the monsters circle around them. Luckily, Solila comes to their rescue, and Darak couldn't be happier to see her. She manages to save them from drowning, but they're not out of the woods just yet because the monsters are coming for them. Minister Dulin tells his son they have to find a way to take back Agoria. The people need him. He is the future. He had his time and failed. Suddenly, a monster eats him alive, and his blood is splashed on his son's face as he goes into shock. Solila took him straight to Zeta, who is now fully healed, and her legs are functioning once again. Unfortunately, even in her true form, she's no match for the quintessons alone. So she asks Solila to leave the sacred ring and travel to Cybertron, her home planet, and get help. She needs to find a way to convince her people to come help. Only with their help will they be able to turn the tide of the war. There's only one way out of the sacred ring, and that's with the help from the Cobra La, who can use the Leviathan to escape undetected. Solila tells Pythona that she needs their help locating the Cybertronians, and she agrees to help them. Maybe it will lead her to finding a way back to Earth. Before leaving, they are found and attacked by the tribunal, who jumps on the Leviathan's back and injures it in the same place it was attacked before. This causes the ship to scream in agony, releasing an electroshock that hurts the tribunal and forces him to let go. The tribunal falls to the ground, but claims he wasn't defeated. He was merely taken by surprise. Judge Naven was negotiating the terms of surrender with Premier Zalilak, but the tribunal arrives and takes over. He says he's the war judge. He presides over war, and when that ends, he goes searching for more war. They called him here because they were failing, so he takes over the negotiations. Premier Zalilak enumerates his many titles and says he speaks for all Zertonians before agreeing to surrender. Deep in space, the Leviathan was injured badly and is losing a lot of blood, but she can still fly. Solila feels like she abandoned her people by agreeing to leave the sacred ring, but Darak comforts her. They only left to get more help. They're going to find the Cybertronians, others like Springer, Hot Rod, and Jetfire, and then they're gonna come back to fight the Quintessons. This war is far from over.